The Florida legislature is debating a controversial bill that some say would violate residents' First Amendment rights. House Bill 1, also known as the Riot Bill, comes after a year of political unrest across the nation, beginning with last summer's Black Lives Matter riots following the death of George Floyd. In an exclusive interview with News 13's Emily McLeod, Florida House Speaker Chris Sprowls says the bill is about protecting our communities.
House Bill 1, combating public disorder, would punish people who engage in violence or destruction to further a riot or aggravated riot. Critics say the bill is an infringement of Americans' right to peacefully assemble as guaranteed by the First Amendment. But Florida Speaker of the House Chris Sprowls says that's not the case.
The reality is that what's protected is speech and peaceful protest. What this bill does criminalize is violence. What it does criminalize is destruction. What it does criminalize is threatening people, injuring people, using violence and threats and weapons to destroy property or to force your political views on somebody else.
The bill says a person commits a riot if he or she participated in a violent public disturbance involving an assembly of 3 or more persons acting with a common intent to assist each other in violent and disorderly conduct. A person would commit an aggravated riot if the riot involved 9 or more people and if while they were rioting caused great bodily harm to a person not participating in the riot, caused more than $5,000 in property damage, and more. Sprowls insists peaceful protesters will not get wrapped up in this bill.
The whole notion that there's anything, a single word in this bill, that would allow somebody who's peacefully protesting, which is a sacred American right, a sacred American tradition, that they would be swept up and arrested or hurt in any way is totally and patently false.
Sprowls says Senate President Simpson and Governor DeSantis are also committed to public safety. He says they want to send a clear message.
It doesn't matter what you're there to protest. What matters is whether or not you're being violent. What matters is whether or not you're threatening people. What matters is whether or not you're destroying their business. It doesn't matter what the reasons are. We always want Americans to be able to redress their government and talk about their grievances publicly, but nobody has the right to violate the rules or our public safety that we all share.
The bill was filed on January 6th, the same day protesters took over the U.S. Capitol building in Washington.
House Bill 1 is all about protecting our communities, making sure that the things that happened this summer here in Florida and throughout the country, the things that happened at the nation's capital several months ago, are not something that happen here in the future.
The bill is still working its way through the House and Senate. Emily McLeod, News 13, Panhandle Strong.